circulating. If you're willing, please sign up so we can get back in touch with you. I am David Borden, Executive Director of Dear CNET Foundation, also known as StopTheDrugWar.org. Thank you for joining us. This is our 7th event in this series and our 4th at the Commission on Narcotic Drugs. Our discussion will primarily, but not exclusively, refer to the human rights situation in the Philippine drug war. Under President Duterte, who campaigned on a promise to slaughter hundreds of thousands of drug users and sellers, an estimated over 30,000 people have been killed. 7,000 acknowledged killings by police, well over 20,000 by unofficial killings, of which there's been documentation that government payments are involved, tying it to the drug war. I'm not sure we know with certainty what proportion of the unofficial killings are drug war killings, but in the 2017 accomplishments report, the Duterte administration listed those unofficial killings as an accomplishment. We are also the coordinator of a campaign, Stand with Human Rights and Democracy, global campaign for the Philippines. We have allies from around the world, and we are rallying, doing our part to rally international pressure on the Philippine government and casting the issue, discussing it in the frame of the global rise in populist authoritarianism. Our view is, at the Philippine mission made a statement on the opening day of the session. They had a side event canceled, which didn't go forward for reasons we're not aware of. And I haven't seen its transcript, but was told they cited arrests done of police officers. But by all accounts, the number of prosecutions for these tens of thousands of killings is implausibly low. That, together with the statements of the president calling for killings, taking credit for them, and promising to protect people from prosecution, to us has just one likely appearance. And the relative lack of prosecutions in turn points to why we see this as an international legal matter. The International Criminal Court Office of the Prosecutor has been conducting a preliminary examination of the situation and indicated at the Rome Treaty Assembly last December that a decision on whether to do an investigation would be coming soon. We have a number of distinguished speakers joining us. Philip Sawali, the Chief of Staff to imprisoned Senator Lalo de Lima, unfortunately was called away by an urgent situation, sends his regrets, hopes to join us in the future. We have Chino Obiagwu, representing the chair of the Nigeria Coalition for the International Criminal Court, and we have Mohammed Ashrafuzzaman from the Asian Legal Resource Center, both on Skype. As I mentioned before, if the volume of our speakers on Skype is a little low back there, because we weren't able to tie it into the room audio, please come forward. We'll be able to hear it better. Longtime friend and colleague, Marco Perduca, former senator from Italy, and with the Associazone Luca Coscioni. I'll just say a few words of what Philip might have spoken about. We talked about the 30,000 plus killings that it's believed have happened in the drug war. There's also an expanded attack on political opposition. February 24 was the 3-year anniversary of the jailing of Senator De Lima. But last summer, prosecutors opened sedition cases against 36 opposition figures, up to and including the vice president, including priests, senators, even members of staffs. That was recently downsized to 10, but they issued their first arrest warrants. There are attacks on the media. The case of the news outlet Rappler is well known, and the charges being brought against its publisher, Maria Ressa. But right now, the administration is trying to shut down the nation's leading broadcast network, ABS, CBN. And what we are told is, and this has happened with other types of businesses, is that with the threat of a shutdown, the business value gets deflated, and President Duterte's business allies from Davao City step in and make an offer. They buy the business, and Duterte gets to control them, and who knows what else he might get. The owners of ABS have stood up, and the Senate voted against the president on this. I'm not sure exactly where that makes the status. But it's a difficult situation there. Now I'm happy to say that for my country, the U.S. Congress and the U.S. State Department have taken actions. Congress passed last year the Asia Reassurance Initiative Act, calling for targeted sanctions against officials involved in the abuses, of which the Global Magnitsky Act is our most well-known law, but not the only law in this category. This year, a language calling for a travel ban on officials responsible for Senator De Lima's incarceration, preventing them from entering the U.S. And it was reported from Philippine news, actually first made known by one of the targets. The U.S. government doesn't always announce these designations. The former police chief who built the drug war infrastructure for Duterte and is now a senator, he informed the media that he's been banned from entering the United States. This happened before the passage of the most recent law, so it was must have been based on prior authority, perhaps encouraged by the ARIA Act. We are told that it's made big waves in the Philippines. Not everyone admits it, but some observers believe that it's had some loosening effect on President Duterte's power, and that he can still get what he wants on a matter if he focuses on it personally, but that otherwise he may or may not get his way. We will, with that, I'd like to turn to the first of our speakers online, Chino. As I said before, Chino is the chair of the Nigeria Coalition for the International Criminal Court. Chino, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much, David.
Thanks for joining us, Chino.
Well, my name is Chino. We are rival to the Nigerian Coalition for the International Criminal Court, which is a coalition of civil society organizations and lawyers working to promote international criminal justice and to stop impunity in Africa and around the world. We are also part of the Global Coalition for the International Criminal Court, which wants to support the world globally. We're happy to be part of the a very important discussion because for us in Nigeria, in Africa, especially in Nigeria, the drug war is something that affects our people and our families. And we think, and we're glad when the International Criminal Court started opening up a PE on that situation. And we're concerned that things are getting worse. A lot of people are being fair trials, and the drug war resulting in extrajudicial executions. So we're glad that this point is here for us to discuss these issues. And thank you, David, for inviting us to this meeting.
So, maybe you can tell us a little bit about, as I mentioned, the Philippines case is in preliminary examination, but Prosecutor Bensouda stated last December that it's in the very late stages. Promised the decision would come this year. It felt to me like it would come sooner. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what this stage in the process means and what people can expect if an investigation is commenced?
Yeah, well, the International Criminal Court in its 20th year has not really picked up that of speed of proceedings. The Office of the Trial Prosecutor, the Office of the Prosecutor, has 3 opportunities to open investigations. First is if there's a referral from the National Security Council, or if the state party refers the case to it, or if the prosecutor on his own opens investigation because of gross and systematic violation of international crime in the terrorism concern. And then the first of all must open preliminary examination to determine whether there is jurisdiction or whether international crime is committed. And those preliminary examinations will go in 3 phases at the severity jurisdiction, and then be able to determine whether there is a case for investigation. Yes. In the case of Philippines, the Office of Trial of the Prosecutor opened preliminary investigations, and it was just in the first phase of the admissibility. And it's definitely a one. We don't expect a speedy proceeding because there are also a number of preliminary examinations that have lasted several years. I mean, preliminary examination, especially in Colombia, in Guinea, Nigeria, are getting to their 10th year. So the process is slow. Of course, there are a lot of political issues, but the non-cooperation from the government is also not helping the prosecutor in carrying out his work. So we do hope that as the student's tenure ends next year, that she's going to speed up the preliminary examination and get into the final phase, in order to take a decision on investigation, whether to open the investigation. Of course, there are a lot of violations that fall within the obstacles in the drug war, which I think the prosecutor should be encouraged, and that's what we are doing in the face of the prosecutor, providing more information about victims, so that a decision can be taken even before the student tenure as a prosecutor ends next year. So we are still hoping that ICC will continue to work in the situation in the Philippines, despite the non-cooperation from government.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure we will get to return to you during the discussion session, but this seems like a good point to bring in Zaman. As I introduced before, Mohammed Ashrafuzzaman, representing the Asian Legal Resource Center, based in Hong Kong. But one of one of the ramifications of the Turkey's killing campaign has been some irritation in the region and beyond the region, not at the same scale, but Zaman is a native Bangladeshi, and he's going to tell us something about that. Zaman, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, David, and everybody for inviting and giving us this opportunity to share our experiences about this. This Duterte effect, in the case of Bangladesh, it's the government adopted it last year in 2018. We need to remember that that's the election year. By the end of the year, the country had general election. So about February, they started this execution of people as suspect of drug traders. And so far, a few hundred people, I mean, to be exact, in the conservative figure that we have documented is 489. But beyond that, Bangladesh doesn't kill people only in the pretext of war on drug. It also kills war on sex crimes and normal, ordinary crimes, and also there are cases of hundreds of enforced disappearances. So that is one situation. Then, as a consequence, the perpetrators have blatant impunity, and they also get rewards. For example, national awards, gallantry rewards from the police, and presidential medal, prime minister's medal, like that, for this type of killings. Even the head of the police, who should be held for his command responsibility, is now ambassador of Bangladesh to Spain. So, I mean, that's how they treat to the perpetrators. And then in the local judiciary, there is no way to seek justice for these victims. We do not find any single instance that people have fought any case adequate, credibly investigated, or there is no question of prosecution because the investigation ever happens. Then we from the Asian Legal Resource Center, we are trying to get the attention from the International Criminal Court about these crimes, particularly enforced disappearance is a crime against humanity as defined in the Rome Statute. So I'm not sure how much interest the ICC has about Bangladesh domestic crimes, because Bangladesh, as a party to the Rome Statute, it has brought this Rohingya forced deportation case before the ICC, and as Myanmar doesn't allow any international experts or institutions to its own territory, so all the UN and other international bodies, they only rely on Bangladesh to get access to and do their job by listening from the refugees who are around 1 million living in Bangladesh. So I got a feeling, if I am not wrong, I would be happy to be wrong, that the ICC doesn't want to disturb Bangladesh by talking about their problem, the crimes that being committed by the Bangladesh government. Rather, they want the cooperation about the Rohingya case. So, Rohingya case is the priority, and then the drug killings and enforced disappearances that are happening in Bangladesh, that is still not in their agenda. That's how I feel, but maybe it's too early. They are also taking time. So we need to work a lot on this issue. So that's why I will stop for the moment. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Zaman. Yeah, thank you, Zaman. Before we will have some questions for you. I think next would like to turn it over to our colleague Marco Perduca.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. I think we have to go back in history a little bit about the ICC and the core crimes of the International Criminal Court. As a matter of fact, drug trafficking was the reason why everything was brought to the attention of the General Assembly in the mid-80s by the then President of Trinidad and Tobago. That appealed to the international community of having a super partes tribunal to try the criminals that were shipping cocaine from Latin American countries to the US and Europe by the Caribbean. That didn't take up as a crime, but other crimes were included. So war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide are the three core crimes that were enshrined in the statute in Rome in '98, and aggression was added a few years back. What has been documented by several NGOs, and I think we have to commend Dave and DRCnet and Stop the Drug Law War for the work that they have been doing over the last 3.5 years, is that this is a new type of criminal activities that have been brought to the attention of the International Criminal Court, which is, to try and put it diplomatically, it's an excessive use of force in enforcing national legislation on the one hand, but on the other hand is a blatant violation of also national legislation, because to the best of my knowledge, even if countries apply the death penalty for drug-related crime, death penalty is applied after a trial, no matter how fair the trial is. So we are now facing a completely different situation. The other important thing, but perhaps we get back to the individual sanctions at the end of our presentation, is that the developments in The Hague that were presented to the public at the beginning of December concerning the situation in the Philippines are a good news on the one hand, because it means that after 2.5 years of insisting and preparing documents that have been presented bilaterally but also publicly to the Office of the Prosecutor, Madame Bensouda, finally the merit emerged, and so there is a possible case before that. And as it has been said before, there are ways to block the opening of an investigation, but the only organ of the United Nations system that can do that is the Security Council. If they believe that the investigation is a threat to international peace and security. Now, this is the theory. The practice is that alliances among countries, and one would be enough within the 15 member states of the Security Council, can block it. And I have already 2 possible suspects that could act to try and block this investigation, but I won't share the name with you to ruin the surprise. They're permanent members, though, of the Security Council. The other issue is that it takes a lot of time to have these investigations or the dossier being prepared and pushed forward. But once the case is open, it stays open and it continues to be enriched by additional information, and because member states know that a procedure has been triggered in The Hague, attention remains strong and constant on the suspected. You may know that also at the beginning of the year, al-Bashir, the former president / dictator of Sudan, who was deposed in a coup, I would say, or after a series of popular revolts, may be sent soon to the ICC in The Hague. After 11 years of his indictment, and after 15 years, the referral to the case, thanks to France within the Security Council. So once the machine gets into motion, it doesn't stop, it continues. So if I were one of the suspected people that are perpetrating crimes today, and because they are where they are, I would bet on my impunity or allies at the Security Council, I would look at the future in a completely different way. If you take into consideration the history and story of al-Bashir. We hope that the gentleman is going to be transferred soon to The Hague and the trial will start. But this, I think, is a very strong message. But I have a question for, I think, more for Bangladesh than for the Philippines. I understand the politics behind the alliance between investigators that are investigating, sorry about the confusion, the Ringa case and the need for them to have access to the places where refugees are. But I was wondering if there any evidence that the national system is either unwilling or unable to even try the people that have perpetrated the crimes for the sake of the war on drugs or any other massive violation of not only human rights but international humanitarian law as it is described in the Statute of the Rome Treaty. Because that, if there is an investigation that is starting, because also, as it has been said before, in the Philippines, investigations have started. A few people have also been arrested. But it's not enough given the scale, the systematic and widespread commission of what has been considered to be a crime against humanity. So I apologize for not having followed closely the developments, but is there any such thing happening in Bangladesh today? Because we know that complementarity is one of the major pillars of the International Criminal Court. That is, first it's up to the country where the crime has been committed or the country of the nationality of the victims and or the perpetrators. But then if nothing happens at the national level, everything can be moved one step up. Last thing is all these things, also possibly the first case being brought to the attention of the ICC, and the ICC itself would have never happened without the support and proactive participation of civil society organizations. And despite the fact, now the room is fuller than it was this morning when we started, but small events like this are perhaps because convened at the crack of dawn, do not have a lot of people in the room, but make a difference because they are the example of things that are moving in a transnational level at a lot of different levels, but in a coordinated fashion. And when you coordinate a lot of small efforts, you can have very big results. Thanks.
Thank you, Marco. And before we turn to your question about Bangladesh and then to questions from the audience, wanted to note one thing. And they can pull up that media. We invited the European External Action Service, EAS, to participate, and they were unable to, but Gus Hutwain, if I pronounced that right, from the agency, sent his regards, and he noted two reports of relevance published by the European Commission related to the general system of preferences. The one devoted to the Philippines, it's quite extensive in its analysis of the human rights issues and a number of other areas. Marco brought up the death penalty and how extrajudicial killings are an even different problem than that. In the European law, I believe, certainly policy, the death penalty as a matter of statute has a consequence. So if we have anyone anyone in the Philippines, from the Philippines, listening on the live stream, we might. People need to realize that if the House and Senate of the Philippines do enact the death penalty under law, it's likely to it may change the trade relationship of the Philippines with Europe in ways that are adverse for the Philippines. No one in any part of this that I've spoken to is anxious for that to happen, but if the death penalty gets enacted, things will probably move in that direction.
It's not, sorry to interrupt, it's not only the death penalty. Bilateral agreements between the European Union and so-called third countries have the human rights clause. So any type of violation of human rights, so the death penalty is the biggest and last one of a long chain of persecution, discrimination, however you want to call it. But in theory, conditionality is one of the principles enshrined in bilateral organizations. So once again, it's up to us if governments don't take action, or the European Commission doesn't take action. Parliament has been very vocal on these issues, also on the Philippines, with the resolutions or paragraphs about the Philippines, but also elsewhere where human rights have been violated for the sake of policy decisions, not necessarily sacrificed on the altar of the war on drugs, but certainly human rights in general are one of the conditions for which money can be stopped, and also recently has been stopped for those reasons. So there are precedents that should be used also without necessarily calling the death penalty into question.
So we have, I think, 6 minutes before we are supposed to stop, and there is a point of ending here at 9. So do we have any questions from the audience at this point?
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Zaman. I'm from the United Nations Human Rights Office in Geneva, and I'm Human Rights and Drug Policy Advisor at the UN High Commissioner Office. And thanks for the presentation, and also thanks to 2 colleagues from abroad joining us by Skype, particularly Mr. Chito. Really good to hear you. And just my questions is that also with regard to Philippine situation, that in different human rights committee recently has addressed this issue, particularly asking to addressing the impunity is concerned. At the national level, the judiciary, what is the state of the judiciary? Do you think that whether there are any possibility that Philippine judiciary can take also or taking any action? And you have been involved with the Human Rights Commission for a long time, and we know that Human Rights Commission has been investigating. But one of the concerns, we know the protection of the victims and witnesses, and what measures has been taken with regard to that. Thank you.
There was one question about Bangladesh. If you want, I can try to answer to that.
Please, and then the other one. Thank you.
Okay. So, the national judicial system is not useful at all for these type of crimes, like crimes committed by the law enforcement agencies. I can give you one example. That for extrajudicial execution of one man, a senior judicial magistrate ordered the perpetrator of the Rapid Action Battalion of the country, the officers to be detained in prison. And then instantly the judge was withdrawn by the chief judicial magistrate, and the reason was given that for the sake of people, the judge was being withdrawn. And then the perpetrators were released immediately. So there are a few other examples that if a judge orders any investigation into the extrajudicial executions or human rights violation crimes, then immediately those judges were transferred, and the transfers were like punishment transfer. So the kind of places that they will be sent to, most people would not like to go to work there. Very difficult jurisdictions. So that's how the authorities themselves, they discourage and they intervene into the judicial independence and wisdom. This week, it's not related to extrajudicial execution, but ruling party politician had a case for corruption. So a judge ordered that the leader should be detained, and then immediately the judge was withdrawn and transferred to another place, and a different judge ordered the politician to be released. So, this ruling party and the government institutions like law enforcement agencies, they remain above the law in the country. So the national judicial criminal justice institutions simply do not function in these cases. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Who wants to take on the Filipino question? Yeah.
Sir, I think you quickly repeat the Philippines question, maybe
My question was twofold. Two questions I have. One is what is the state of the national judiciary to investigate or prosecute all the violation which has been happened in Philippines, whether there was any initiative by the judiciary over there. And the second is the concern that protection of witnesses and victims. What measures has been taken inside the country, or what support you require from outside on particular that issue?
Well, I won't be able to give anywhere near a complete answer, and there are portions of this where I'm uncertain. I can say a couple of things. There's a functioning Commission on Human Rights. There are other institutions in the Philippines that are concerned with human rights, including the Catholic Church. We hear it comes up in the news, and we hear privately of people being protected. For example, there were two whistleblowers, former members of Duterte's Davao Death Squad, when he was mayor of that city. One of them in leadership role, and who came out publicly, one of them in a Senate hearing, chaired by Senator De Lima not long before she was jailed, and they are hidden somewhere. It's hard after approaching 4 years to expect the judiciary to solve this, unless maybe the balance of power gets tilted, and maybe they will. The Supreme Court did order the government to release information that they didn't want to. I'm not sure what the status of that is. So is there any extremely quick question or comment from the audience at this point? Okay, thank you for joining us. And I'll mention again, there are a few copies of our sign-in sheet that are circulating. If you haven't already signed in and you're willing, please find one before you leave, and we will be back in touch with you with continuing information on this issue. Thanks again for coming out so early this morning. And thanks to all of our speakers and our volunteers.